I know.
Because I can tell each mind matters.
Because I didn't bring mine up.
No.
No.
You stole mine.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So it looks like I'm going up through 8 and you got to go through this, even though there's just a couple of topics here, there's a lot of slides. Forward. Yeah. So the other thing that I try to say is so we have to like stay. They're having technical issues. They didn't want us to get down. If I decide, hey, let me add something here.
Thank you.
Good morning. Which one of these is on? Oh, I have to push the button. Thank you, Greg. Good morning. Oh, it works now. Hello. Hi, I'm Melissa Connolly, and I'm the Director of In-Service Training at CalSWEC, and I am happy to be welcoming you here today for the third statewide leadership convening. And I'm excited because we get to hear now about all the system change and lessons that you've learned throughout the Learning Collaborative process. So I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I'm going to quickly turn it over to our morning speakers and to Phyllis, who's going to introduce them. I just first want to say a few words of thanks to Phyllis Jaroslaw in particular, who has been leading the committee that put this convening together. And I also want to thank the committee. So those of you who are here who were on the committee that worked to plan this event, can you raise your hand? Thank you very much. We really appreciate all your hard work to put together what looks like a great agenda for us today. I also want to thank Suzanne Schoenfeld, who's been running the registration and trying to get people in here today who didn't have a chance to register in advance. We're full, so it's been a little challenging. And we apologize for the inconvenience of that, but we do have limited space. So thank you for your patience in that as well. I want to thank our CalSWEC in-service training team who are here to help out. You'll see us throughout the day running video cameras and taking notes and handing off microphones. I want to thank the regional training academies who played a big role in the learning collaboratives. Thank you guys very much. And specifically Northern Training Academy, who arranged this space for us today. And finally, I want to thank all of you who've been doing all the work that we'll get to hear about today. So thanks for all your hard work and thanks for being here. Finally, I'm just going to hand it off to Phyllis Jaroslaw, who's going to say a few words and orient us to the day, and then we'll get going. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for coming. I'm very pleased that we have a full house today. And so I also want to echo a lot of the thanks that Melissa expressed, because I also have personal thanks as well for CDSS and DHCS for supporting these efforts, and also to the counties. We have presentations from small and large counties from regions all over the state, and so it's wonderful to have so many different points of view that we'll be able to experience today. I also want to thank our regional training academies who helped and worked with the counties and sponsored their presentations and put all of that together. I'd like to thank our training partners, in addition to the regional training academies, the California Institute for Behavioral Health Solutions, the Chadwick Center for Children and Families, the Child and Family Policy Institute of California, and the California Youth Connection. And additionally, I do want to acknowledge our Pathways to Wellbeing work group who planned the event. And I would also like to thank CalSWEC's administrative staff, particularly Suzanne Schoenfeld, who has handled all the details and put all the pieces together for us, and other support staff back at CalSWEC, including Karen Ringette, our media specialist, who prepared our materials for today, and also our volunteers. So a lot of people to thank. These things just don't happen, without the effort of many, many people. So thank you to all of you and to our audience here today. I have a few announcements to start with. We're going to just very quickly review the agenda. We'll start with an opening plenary session. We will have, we'll reconvene. Then we go off to our breakout rooms. This ballroom gets separated into 3 rooms. And I ask your cooperation when we are making the transition to make space for the hotel staff to move the walls back and forth. And we'll be doing that several times today as we reconvene and then separate out again into afternoon breakout sessions. Our lunch will be held in here. We do have an entertaining lunch networking activity that we urge you to take part in. We hope that it will be both entertaining and informative, so we really encourage you to take part in our lunch networking activity. And if you have your badges that have different colored symbols, stars or hearts, we are designating certain tables for people with the same colored symbol, same type of symbol, to sit together. So, so that will hopefully mix and match you, where you can hear from other people that you don't work with every day. After the afternoon breakout sessions, then we have an afternoon audience plenary. And here you are the feature of the session. We would love to hear from counties who are here today who may not have had a chance to present during the day, but have very important things to share with the whole group. So we would love to hear from you then. That's going to be a facilitated discussion that we will have for half an hour, and then closing remarks from DHCS and CDSS. We would I have some other announcements about CEUs. With regard to, we have psychologists here as well as LCSWs and MFTs who are interested in gaining some continuing education credits. The procedures for the 2 groups are slightly different. For psychologists, you should be picking up a packet at the registration desk, and then there will be volunteers in the room with stickers. They will affix sign in and sign out stickers. At the end of your documentation, you'll see a space where that goes, and so a volunteer can help you with that. The volunteers have the stickers. We're very happy to do that. We are live streaming off the CalSWEC website, and we are recording, and we will be able to have this recording available for you on the website that deals with our convening today. And also, let's see, we have also posted PowerPoints and handouts on the website that I've received to date, and I may be adding to that if I receive more materials from the presenters after today's event. I do have an important room change to announce. There is a room change for our Mariposa County presentation. It will be in Ballroom A, which is one of these rooms here. I don't know exactly which is A, B, and C where it starts, but they'll be in Ballroom A, not B. And they are part of a shared session with the California Youth Connection. And Stanislaus County will stay in Ballroom B as indicated, and they are presenting separately. We also have one more really important announcement, which is that many of you apparently have not signed in or picked up your badge from the front desk. And it's important that you do that because we have people outside waiting to get in. They're on the wait list. And so if you haven't signed in or picked up your badge, please do that so that these other folks can avail themselves of any empty spaces that we have. Okay, well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our morning speakers. We have from CDSS, Greg Rose, the Deputy Director, and Karen Baylor from the Department of Healthcare Services. So please give them a round of applause, and I welcome them.
Morning, everybody. I'm Greg Rose, the Deputy Director for Children and Family Services at the California Department of Social Services, and I had that same list of thank yous to run through that Phyllis and Melissa did. So I won't. I'll just say thank you to you all, and thank you to the ditto to the list that Phyllis just went through. We couldn't do this kind of work without all of the kind of behind the scenes things that goes on to make this day really successful and useful. Before we get started, I always like to get a feel for folks in the room. So if you, and I've created my own little bucket, so if you don't fit in at the end, you can shout out which bucket you think you like to identify with. But if you primarily think of yourself as a parent or child advocate or partner, could you raise your hand? Okay, thank you. If you fulfill the role in the system of kind of largely behavioral health or mental health, could you give us raise your hands there? Okay. If your role is primarily child welfare services, kinds of things, foster care, et cetera, could you raise your hands? Okay. If you largely support that work through some kind of training, technical assistance, or subject matter expertise, could you raise your hand? All right, and just for the county folks in the room, if you're a state staff person, could you raise your hand? So we travel in packs too, and this table didn't get the memo. Troy and Jesse got the memo, which is let's not sit all together. So anyway, we have we have actual slides to get through, but I do, whenever I come back to UC Davis, it reminds me, like when I was in grad school many years ago, and so was my wife, our two boys and we lived in 500 square feet over on the other side of campus, and so this campus has a special meaning to me. Not only did we kind of raise our kids here, my wife and I got married in the Arboretum, and so of course there's no time at today's break I usually tell people, go out to the Arboretum and take a look because it's beautiful, and it starts right over here. And both my wife and younger kid graduated from here, so I've spent most of the 25 years that I've lived in Northern California in and around this campus, and it just kind of makes me feel comfortable, and I'm hoping that today you'll also feel really comfortable here with this discussion. Karen and I really are going to just kind of tell you a few things about what we've been up to, offer a few reflections, and really hope to, if there's time, to have some kind of dialogue with you. Although I think we're getting close to crunch time, right? So in any case, let me just kind of move through some of our stuff right now. You've met us. Here we are. Here's what we intend to talk to you about. And the way things are going to work, I'll say a few. I'll run through a couple of slides. Karen will get up, provide you with some wisdom and thoughtful anecdotes, etc. And then we will. I'll kind of wrap it up. Just a little bit of background. This is stuff that reform that we've been. Bottom line is evolving, and so that's part of our role, and we want to hear about that too. And so we've been kind of collectively, all of us in this room and many of the people back home in the jurisdictions that you come from, really spending a lot of time and effort on this work. And today is just another time that we can come together and celebrate our successes and identify challenges. just a bit about the, the kind of the two, what folks like to call KDA services. I'm trying to avoid those terms, frankly, but often they're known by that. So ICC and IHBS, and just we wanted to say that the important part of this slide really, I think, is that the overwhelming majority of counties, 55 of 58, are providing services. They are submitting claims, and we know that names to understand things, to provide technical assistance. The number of subclass members that have been identified over time from left to right, you can see it's increased from 12,000 to over 18,000. The next row down talks about counties that are providing the services, and you can see that, again, from left to right, from 2013 to this spring, we've gone from 16 to 53. In the middle of the chart, you're noticing kids and youth that are receiving intensive care coordination. It's gone from 500 to well over 6,000. When you look at the next row down, you've got children receiving IHBS. And you can see where in 2013 we were in a few hundreds, and now we're crossed over the 4,000 mark. Children, and then the bottom row is children and youth projected to receive services. These are kind of guesstimates that we all kind of have done collectively. We've gone from 5,000 to 8,000 potential clients, and I would say that even some of our data matching and some of our ongoing work with you all might really indicate that that number might be even bigger, but only you will know as you kind of walk kids through the assessment process, et cetera. Nonetheless, what this demonstrates is that it was a long, hard kind of slog in the beginning. We've made a fair amount of progress together. We should stop at periodically, acknowledge and celebrate that success and those accomplishments. And then, as soon as we're kind of done in the next breath, we should also look and remember that there's still quite a ways to go. And so part of how we're going to get there, and on the next part of our journey, Karen will kind of speak to that now.
Good morning, and thank you all for being here. This is very, very impressive. So Greg starts with a lovely story about UC Davis. I grew up in the Midwest, went to college in the Midwest, and as soon as was done with college, left the Midwest and came out here, but have devoted my life, my whole career, to behavioral health services. And when I first started working at the Department of Healthcare Services, we would have these conference calls, and I'd hear this voice on the other end of the line, and very, very articulate person, and he would ask questions and crickets, no sound at all. And then he would just start talking and talking and talking, and very impressed. I was very impressed, and was like really anxious to meet who is this person. But as I met Greg and as we've started working together, we have the same passion for the same thing. We just approach it in two different ways, but the goal is the same. And I think part of what I think KDA has done is to celebrate our differences, but come together and work in a way that we all want, which is better outcomes for the kids that we serve. And so I was on, 3 conference calls with you yesterday. We're finding where there is so much more overlap between what the behavioral health system does and DSS does. And so even though we come from 2 complete different backgrounds, we have been able to come together, and it's amazing how our core values are the same, our principles are the same. He is funnier than I am, which, and he's much more articulate than I am because I'm trained to listen as a therapist. So, so it's kind of a nice match as we work together. So I'm very pleased to see everybody here. This is so impressive, and really, really, really want to thank you all because We sit up at the state and say, this is a great policy, but it's really you all that have to implement it and make it so. And so I really want to acknowledge all of your work on this and really congratulate all of you because it's been phenomenal. For those of you that don't know, I came from county land before I got the state position, and I remember when we rolled out KDA and we started meeting with our DSS partners, and it was an interesting conversation at the beginning, and I brought cookies, because who doesn't like cookies? And that's how we started really sharing and talking, and you could really see the relationships develop the more, you know, we kept meeting and kept talking, and so I'm sure all of you have experienced the same thing on the local level, but I digress, and I know we're on a time limit, so I'll get to our PowerPoints. But as I said before, there were a lot of action steps that needed to be taken with the implementation of KDA, and one of those was the shared management structure, and that's really where we first started talking. Oh, wait, there. So out of the shared management structure, there was a joint management task force, and that really advised the state on the creation of this shared management structure. And really what we're talking about is that no one take with clear and consistent guidance to counties. You may laugh now because you know the state, we're always very clear, right? And develop outcomes and accountability within the core practice model. So the recommendations for the joint collaboration was to develop an executive team, a community team, a transformation manager and a facilitator, a state team, and limited teams kind of ad hoc as needed. The executive team is charged with providing leadership and making decisions, so it really is the executive parts of DHCS and DSS that come together on a regular basis, and we discuss these policies and figure out what is in the best interest of the child. We also look at data to drive our decisions, and like I said, the executive team consists really of high-level folks within both departments. The shared management structure really is looking at a number of tasks, which is integrated leadership, which I've already talked about, that shared accountability and outcomes, and that really is looking at the data and how, you know, you all had to do those progress reports, and now moving forward, how do we collect the same kind of information without having it be burdensome to counties. I love the time and balanced approach, and because things rush at the state level. You may not think so because it takes so long to get things through, but it really is a lot of activity, and we often talk about like taking a drink from a fire hose, and that's really what life is like, but at the state level, and it really is just taking a moment, as Greg said, to celebrate our successes and really stop and think about really what is in the best interest of the children that we serve. The role of the community team, which we're going to show you a chart here soon that you're probably not going to be able to read either, but as you know, there's the executive team and then there's the community team, and this outlines what the role is for the community team. We've actually started these meetings, and we've had 2 meetings, and we're still working on kind of the process and the structure of this community team. But we did have a kickoff in May, and we've had another meeting, I think it was just last week, and so you know it was really, really hot in Sacramento last week, and we're at DSS building, and you'll never guess what happens. There's a fire alarm. And not only do we need to evacuate the building, but we need to hike a couple of blocks in the heat, and so we gave Greg huge stink eye as we, yeah, no, keep that off. Because it wasn't his fault, but it really took a big chunk of time out of our community team, and it was quite hot outside, and so, but he pulled it back together, and it was a very productive meeting. I am very, very pleased to announce that Richard Connect, wave, stand, do something. awesome guy is, I cannot believe he raised his hand and said, I'll be the transformational manager. I will herd these cats for you, and I can't thank you enough. He had his first run at the community team last week and did a phenomenal job in keeping the conversation going and trying not to get us, you know how sometimes you end up in rabbit holes where you don't mean to, and he did a really good job of keeping us on the agenda. So I'm sure you all know that Richard comes from Placer County, and we're very excited to have and very grateful to Placer County for letting him come do this work. This is the chart. Yeah.
Bureaucracies like charts.
We do like charts, and you probably can see some of it, but anyway, it's the flow of how we see this shared management structure, and I'm sure we can certainly post it on a website or whatever. So the county collaboration and coordination, we're hoping that what happens here at the state level is something that you will also be working on in the local level, and we're giving you a model in order to do that. But we do, the really important thing is we're not always going to agree on the best approaches, but the important thing is to stay at the table and continue talking. We want you to have regular leadership meetings, and if you need an MOU to make you are serving the number of kids that you need to be serving, and then of course having the joint trainings. You can't have a conversation, you've got to be at the table. It really makes a huge difference when everybody is at the table. And I know I'm not telling you anything you already don't know. This is just more of making sure that you have the child and family involvement and engagement, and really looking at sustainability as we go forward. And now we're going to do the Ice Capades thing where I'm going to slide out and Greg will slide back in.
Great. Thanks, Karen. The reason that I speak when there's silence, just because I know you all were wondering about that, like, and despite what my therapist says, it's not all about ego. I was actually trained as a disc jockey when I was in college, and dead air was like, I mean, bad. So if things go silent, I was trained to like ad lib, and so sometimes that gets the best of me. So thank you for acknowledging that, Karen. I thought you were going to talk about my radio voice and how you wondered who I might be. In any case, all right, sorry. I forgot, we're live streaming. Okay, so seriously, so like we've been doing a lot of work, and you've been doing a lot of work, and it took folks, a lot of work to even kind of get us to agree to do all this work. And so what are we going to do with it? And so if you think about kind of looking towards the future, there are a couple of things that I think are really important for us to talk about. One of which is, when we've been talking in front of the legislature the last couple of years about KDA and some of the other kinds of things that are going on, we've been really trying to, in some ways debrand KDA, and we've testified to and said, we want this practice to, in essence, be the new normal. That this is just the way it's done. We don't want to always have it referred to as KDA, even though she certainly we owe a lot to her to get us to think this way. But we really are in this process now of we'd like to kind of debrand, and we want to make these approaches the way that business is done. We're going to obviously continue, with implementation around the core practice model, ICC and IHBS. You'll hear in the not too distant future, I'm hoping, that we'll finally have some approval from our federal partners, so we can really kick off the
EQRO side, on the behavioral health side, when we have the external quality management or quality review organization, out in the counties looking at stuff, we'll be able to take all that information also and synthesize it, have conversations with you about it to make sure we understand the story that the data and information is telling us, and then work together in a continuous quality assurance kind of process. I mentioned that these two departments have created a global data sharing agreement. This was quite a feat. This took many years and many billable hours from attorneys. But we are now in a place with the two departments to be able to say, we have a number of databases that we're going to be able to match. And rather than saying we're going to match these two databases to answer these 3 questions, and answer those questions, destroy the data set, and then remember that new questions will come out of that, and then we do a new data agreement for that. The term global that you'll hear over time really allows the two departments that as we look at information and data and we match it and we analyze it, and as you know, you answer 2 questions and you get 6 more pop up, we can then move and answer those 6 next questions without creating a new data sharing agreement. So there's lots and lots of excitement around data sharing that I want to say. That I want you to know. You'll see more of this, and we'll be able to share more of this. So we started with kind of hand raising. I'm going to wind down with hand raising too. Anybody who in the room has heard about either the Continuum of Care Reform or AB 403? Okay, great. So I'm not going to give you a lot of background. I just want to say this, that the partnership that began related to KDA, the lawsuit, the settlement agreement, the implementation plan, the service delivery action plan, and many other bits of work that we've done together has also formed the foundation for the continuum of care reform, which in some ways we've described as the legacy. The KDA legacy will live on through continuum of care reform. We are in the process of the two departments with our county colleagues and associations and a number of advocates to crafting a comprehensive bill that will create a framework for change that emphasizes foster youth, foster kids growing up in families being supported by the community and ongoing kind of dialogue between the service providing community and our public entities and with the family voice and choice in the middle. You'll see it's harder to see in the bill itself the core practice model with the statute itself doesn't quite tell the story, let's say. But if you step back and you look at the proposed statute and you think about its component parts, you'll see a number of things that are related to the work you're doing. An emphasis on teaming, an emphasis on making sure that the services match the need, an emphasis that on not having to move youth around just so the services can be provided, rather the services being provided in a manner that's consistent with where the child or the youth is. So you're going to see a lot of that stuff just as a kind of a check-in for you all. Legislature is on its summer break now. This bill has gone through both houses' policy committees and the Assembly Appropriations Committee and the Assembly floor vote. We've not sustained a single no vote yet. So it's got only yes votes through the legislature. It's in the Senate Appropriations Committee now. When they get back, when the legislature gets back, we will have, there'll be a hearing there, a floor vote, and some more stuff. But it's very likely that, at least this framework for change will be codified. And frankly, as hard of work as that's been, that will be nothing compared to all of the kind of work that we have ahead of us to really implement those policy goals. But I think that those of you in the room today are in a strong position to make that a reality, and because you've been doing it, you've been doing parts of it, you've been doing lots of it, you've been experimenting with it, and we'll need your help and advice along the way. Everybody likes websites. Here's websites.
You stole my speech. No, just a reminder that we do have a KDA website at DHCS. We have tried to make some improvements in our website so it's a little easier and friendly to navigate, but our search engine is quite good. And so if nothing else, you go to the DHCS website and type in KDA, a bunch of stuff will come up for you. Greg touched on the therapeutic foster care, and I just wanted to kind of give you a brief update on that piece because that's really the next big heavy lift for us. We have been working with with CMS, our federal partners. It's been fascinating to come from the county side, then to learn the state side, and now to have to deal with the feds has been a fascinating experience. But we are in constant communication with CMS. I hear we're really, really close in getting it resolved. We've had to do a